Hello and welcome to another episode of Crush Your Mountain. Dr. Ganz Ferrance is an incredible registered psychologist, speaker, author, and coach. He holds a PhD in counseling psychology and an MA in developmental and educational psychology. Now, I had the privilege of talking with him a little while ago, and I'm going to share that with you today. Unfortunately, he's on holiday. He's had to leave the area. He's in Alberta, Canada, but he's going to be back with us live in an upcoming episode. So in the meantime, I want to invite you to check out this behind the scenes pre-show video that we did a few months back. And if you are part of my company or you work along with me in the day job, you may recognize some of this information that I presented with our parent company for Mental Health Month. Anyway, take a listen. Here he comes now. This is going to be an honor. Dr. Ganz, are you with us?
I am.
It is amazing to meet you.
Oh, you too, man. You too. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thanks for your time. So you're the author of The Me Factor.
I am.
And you have your website, askdrgans.com.
Mm-hmm.
So just to let you know a little bit about me, I to get to wax both poetic and philosophical, I am a piece of volcanic ash floating amidst the rarefied air of coaching.
Excellent. Love it.
And a couple years.
Love that description.
Yeah, because this is for my podcast actually.
Mm-hmm.
My business coach is helping get things together, and I was posting every month for the past couple of years, but now she's got me kicking it into high gear and doing a live Facebook, which will post to YouTube right after.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
I like that. But the name of my show, I don't know if you've been to my little humble YouTube channel.
Not yet, no.
It's called Crush Your Mountain. Crush has become an acronym. Didn't start out that, but it stands for, the Crush stands for conceive and commit, refine and rework, undertake, sustain, and habituate. And it's a method of helping individuals accomplish their goals, effectively change their lives. That's where when it comes to the weight loss and diabetes reversal, which is one of my niches, to just overall dealing with various challenges in life. That's why I was really thrilled, because you've worked with the tough cases. I don't know. I might have to see if I can make some, the 6 degrees of separation. I have to find those 6 people to Oprah so she can get you a gig here, like Dr. Phil.
I agree. I wish you luck with that, because I would love to do that too.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be an awesome platform. So
yeah. So now, just to kind of get a notion of your methods and everything else.
Sure.
The foundations you might see of psychology would be structuralism, functionalism, psychoanalysis, and then behaviorism. Where do you land in those 4 pillars?
Well, I might be outside of those, but so cognitive behavioralism is sort of the big catch-all umbrella that we use, but it's beyond that for me, because it's how would I describe it? endocrinology, physiological. That's, I work with the whole body and really look at how your body, how your experiences really impact how you feel, and sort of the if you want to call it the patterns we fall into because of what we've experienced in the past.
So
And a
like
lot
pattern recognition in conjunction with neuro-linguistic programming.
Something like that, but it's deeper too, because there's like, okay, so for example, the fight or flight response, right? If we have something that triggers that and we don't resolve that, if we don't go through the whole process of surviving whatever the attack is or perceived attack, and being able to shake it off and be able to move on, that charge stays within a certain part of our brain and starts to kind of rotate. But then it triggers all sorts of physiological, neurological, as well as like hormone changes in our body that actually affect our behavior and our thinking, and it stays with us and kind of changes our personality, right? But by helping create a safe environment where somebody can actually start to calm down, then complete that response, our body goes back to reset, goes almost like back to factory reset, and then you're free, right? You're free to kind of carry on and make better choices. If we don't do that, we stay in a state of hyperactivation, and the hyperactivation, well, you can call it stress, right? You're past your prime in terms of your stress response, and so you can't think properly, your body doesn't work properly, like everything sort of breaks down. But we get used to it, because that's something about humans, is that we habituate. And so we habituate to underfunctioning, and we think it's normal. When you actually start to relax a little bit and get this kind of figured out, all of a sudden your performance goes up, you feel more relaxed, you do more with less effort, and just a lot of stuff happens that way.
Nice. So how did you come up with your program? And would you define your program for us? What I call my the crush method. Talk with me. What do you call it officially, and how do you come up with it?
So, all right. So what I just described is called self-regulation therapy. It's not mine. I was trained in it by some good people out on the West Coast here. And I'll give you their website too. It's cftre.com. cftre.com, and those are the folks that do the training in this particular style of therapy or approach or paradigm. I'm not sure what you'd want to call it.
Okay.
My specific claim to fame, the book, all that stuff's called the Me Factor. Okay. And the Me Factor is that this one has been tested and produced by the lab of my life. And
the lab of your life, not the love of your life.
The lab of my life, yes. Right. Blood, sweat, and tears went into this one. And this was what I had to come up with after I'd burnt myself out a few times, and really kind of figuring out, okay, how do I make sure I have a system to keep me balanced, keep me healthy, make sure I feed all the important parts of my life to keep everything in harmony, but then also to have a strategy that helps me decide, helps me to have good boundaries with the people in my life, and helps me decide what actions I should take or what I should say yes to and what I should say no to, right? My big problem has been, and I don't think this is unique to me, especially as a Black man, you know what I mean? It's like there are certain special challenges we have to deal with.
Absolutely.
I was the go-to person in my family. And so everybody was relying on me, and being the go-to person, being the person who felt like I had more success, there was also a sense of responsibility and even guilt sometimes around trying to help other people, and did that to the point of depletion, right? And then stuff started to go bad with me. I remember I used to do this little weekly, every week I used to do this little circle in northern Alberta where I live. And, one day, I had a headache for 2 or 3 weeks. And one day I woke up in one of these places. I couldn't figure out where I was. I did not know where I was. And I was terrified. I thought I'd had a stroke.
Wow.
And fortunately it wasn't. After about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I figured out where I was, which hotel it was, which what city or town I was in. But my head was just splitting, and I called my appointments for that day, and I just fell back into bed, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna lay here until things settle. Fortunately, it wasn't a stroke. I was able to get home, but that really was the wake-up call for me that I needed to do something different. I was really pushing. I was trying to be everything to everybody. It was, it was early in my career, so I was trying to be a good psychologist and do all the things I wanted to do, help all these people, keep everybody happy. But meanwhile, I wasn't happy, and my physiology was screaming at me, and my relationship with my wife was also being damaged, right? And so it was that this system came out of that. And what I did is I wrote the system down, because I know I couldn't be trusted in the moment to make the right decision. I needed to have policies and procedures for myself. And then I recorded it so that I could play it to myself. So I spent a lot of time on the road. So I put on a CD and I just play it to myself over and over and over to try to get it to sink in. Well, then I started to see that a lot of my clients, like 97% of my clients, also were deficient in some part of this little paradigm that I had described for myself. And so I started working with people around this and had huge success, because people started, oh, this is how I need to organize my life. This is what my priorities need to be. Oh, these are things that are missing in terms of my self-care. Do you know what I mean? And it started to just take off, and they said, hey, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And it took me 10, 15 years to write the book. But anyway, I did. And that's how this whole thing came about. And so now, I have a small private practice, but it's really mostly speaking and coaching and consulting. And it's all about helping people, deal with their stress in a healthy way, have better relationships, and really improve their communication using this model and other pieces that I've kind of got over the 30 years or whatever I've been in psychology.
This is beautiful. I got to tell you your story, and especially as a person of color, that's something that, as a Black individual, ours is a unique circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to your friend and partner yesterday, Mikola. I don't know if you met him. And we were talking about DNA and how the environment affects a person's DNA, but leaping off of that, because I think you would probably agree, okay, I mentioned to him that very many areas of African American communities, which I didn't use that phrase, I was a little bit more euphemistic, but many communities tend to be food deserts as far as lack of high nutrition. And then not to mention, that tends to be the most polluted parts of town, and that's often deliberately, and when you look at it back historically.
Yep.
How has that, or can that have a specific effect, not just on we agreed on the DNA part, but thus wouldn't that also drive the psychology of the community and thereby spill over likewise into the rest of society?
It absolutely would. And and there's hereditary stuff to that too. There's genetic hereditary stuff with epigenetics and all sorts of stuff that happens with that. Actually changes your DNA. We know that now. But then there's also just the generational trauma that we go through, right? From slavery, colonialism, like all of it, right? And so, there are certain things that we do, and we being people, but especially in the Black community, where certain things were a survival mechanism early on, and they made sense given the circumstance, but they continue to play out even though the situation's changed, right?
Yeah.
So during slavery, and we know this, I mean, I'm not preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but a Black man's, if a woman had a boy, their value keeping them alive was helping them to be a stud, making sure they could stay alive and be part of the breeding stock, and not through education, because if they were educated, they're at a higher chance of being killed, right? In slavery. So there's that sort of thing in the culture that's like functional at certain points, a certain specific point in slavery, but not functional overall, especially before that, the fact that we were highly educated.
Yeah.
The fact that we were we were world leaders in many, many things, right? In many areas. And so but that whole thing has been passed down. And unless we know our history, we tend to repeat our history. And, and because when certain patterns are created at very early in our development, they're not necessarily stuck, but they're harder to change.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mentor a young fellow, and been kind of working with him since he was about 8 years old. And when I met him, he was on about 4 or 5 different medications. One for ADHD, and then I think the ADHD, called that particular medicine, I think either caused hyperactivity or something else. So they gave him medication to counteract that, which drove him into depression. They gave him the medication to counteract that, and then he winds up too depressed, so they gave him medication for that. And by the time 8 years later, he's homicidal and literally ready to kill his mother. In fact, they had to actually call the cops because he's chasing her down the street. Now, he was also about 100 pounds overweight at 16 years old. Okay, and one of the horror moments for me was to see him at that time being administered his medication by his mom, and she gave him his handful of pills, and he washed it down with orange soda.
Jeez.
Okay. Okay. So and she carried that one for okay. But now, when they put him in the facility, I hadn't seen him for a few months. When he came out, he was 100 pounds slimmer. He would refuse to take any medication. Does that mean he's no psychotic? I think now my personal belief is that with everything else plus the combination of drugs, that's what has him in the point that he's now. He still has. I took him out the other day to the park, and I just went through a couple of breathing exercises and things like that, and he became more calm. Okay, although he still had his moments. But the moment I got him I had to go to do some shopping. I took him to Sam's Club. That's what we got down here. And he became very agitated. And after that, I could tell he was, the paranoia was just right here. What are you looking at? I'll beat you, that sort of thing. He was, vocalizing his aggressiveness, not towards people, but in the air. If guys in the other car, he's fussing about it, that sort of thing. And so, I always wonder what can be done in a situation like that to help them to focus.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting because I think when you had him in the park, it was a natural setting. There was not a lot of overstimulation. And I think a lot of the reparative types of things that happen with folks like this is really in the honest, organic relationship that they have with somebody like a mentor like yourself, right? There are whatever interventions and tricks and exercises we can do and different things like that, right? But a lot of the really good stuff is the fact that we're connected. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And they feel safe, they feel connected. And particularly with the training that I have, the idea of bringing the energy that's missing, being a little bit of an anchor, right? Being a grounding spot for them, so that if their nervous system is out of whack and overstimulated and hyper and stuff like that, to be around a calming presence that is okay with them being who they are, but knowing that helping to create a safe space for them, but knowing, no, we're okay, we're good, right? It's kind of like when new parents have a kid and then grandma or grandpa or the older auntie comes in and just takes the baby settles right down and goes to sleep, right? It's that. It's having a settled nervous system in the face of somebody who's overly hyper activated, and helps them to settle down, right? When you took them into Sam's Club, yeah, there's just a lot of moving pieces, right? There's a lot of people, it's crowded, it's busy, and it was probably maybe a little too much for him at that time. Now, over time, if you start off in a calm place and then slowly introduce little pieces of that where, you set it up so that he has the opportunity, okay, this is enough. I can feel it. I'm going to step back away, right? So he starts to get a little bit of self-awareness as to what is helping, what is making him feel so triggered, instead of it just being triggered and he's acting out, right? When he starts to feel like, oh, I'm feeling okay, I need to maybe take a break. Maybe I don't go into Sam's Club all the way, or I go in for 5 minutes, I come out, or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? Over time of slowly introducing this and helping him to know it's safe, and helping him to self-regulate. He pays attention, he knows, okay, this is good, I can handle this. Yeah, I probably got another 5 minutes I can do. Okay, yeah, let's walk around, right? That can really help somebody to start to kind of master that sense of whatever's going on within them, so they don't feel like they have to either protect themselves. I mean, what you're describing, he's a scared kid. You know what I mean? He's a scared kid who feels threatened, right? Even though no one's threatening him.
Absolutely. And our, I won't say our as a whole, but especially when we're in that teenage or late youth, the fight or flight response manifests in anger and violence, or at least an aggressive attitude.
Well, especially as men.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. So here's an interesting thing. How do mind, money, and DNA fit together?
Right. So I'm the mind, of course. The money, mind, and DNA. So what I know, there's been a ton of research that from the Psychologist Association, American Psychological Association, actually, recognize that money is the number one cause of stress in individuals' lives. And this was pre-COVID, so maybe COVID has some skewing effects to that, right? But and it's also the number one cause of tension and arguments within a relationship. And so we know that if you have your money stuff taken care of, or at least on a path, it helps you to reduce your stress. From my perspective, so I have 11 me factors. I have 5 external factors and 7 internal factors. One of my internal factors is money. When we have money handled, or at least addressed, we reduce our sense of frustration, our sense of stress, but we also feel like our life is more in harmony. And so for me, I can see how money fits into my program very well. DNA is all about health. It's all about your physical health, which one of the other factors internally is physical health, right? What is your physical plant doing? And so DNA is an important part of that, understanding your genetics, understanding any predispositions you might have, because if you get in front of it and change your lifestyle appropriately, diabetes, you talked about type 2 diabetes before. If you know you have a predisposition for that, you can maybe eat right and exercise and do a few extra things. It may never show up. Do you know what I mean? Right. And so recognizing that, and also we have the tools available for us to be able to look into that crystal ball and see what's coming, or what could possibly be coming, and then get ahead of it. But the other part of it is, and this is just, I thought was just brilliant when Mikolai showed me this, is that he can, with a good genetic sequencing, you can really dial in your medications, right? Your health medications around like everything, like particularly cancers, heart disease, hypertension, all that stuff, but especially mental health. There's a whole bunch of stuff around what is the right medication for depression or ADHD or hyperactivity or anxiety. What are some of the ones that work with your genetic makeup? Because some of them are actually toxic to you. Yes. Some of them you may need a higher dose. Some of them you may need a lower dose. Do you know what I mean? But they can really dial that in to quite a good extent. with what they're doing. And so when we got together, we knew each other. We presented together at different, not together, but we presented at different conferences together. And so we said, this would be kind of cool to put this package together and offer it to businesses so they can have a full package to talk like business leadership, so they can, have it for their leadership team, but also for all the rest of the employees in the company. Because we also know that most people work, and this is where the money, the rubber meets the road for people. But we know that happy workers are healthy workers and are productive workers.
Yes.
And particularly with the great resignation that we're going through right now, they also stick around. They'll be happy with your company if they know the company's looking after them. Right?
One of the things that I work with on my what I euphemize, what I call my day job, okay, is they have been more conscious of mental health, particularly since, if my memory serves me correctly, that someone made the connection with with many of the, I believe, the Olympic stars saying, "Look, I'm taking a mental health break." And after that, that became more of a thing. I mean, during COVID, yes, absolutely, they made available several different avenues of self-care. And I thought that was wonderful. But then they've done further steps. This month here is Mental Health Month, and I even participated in that. So, and to say this, that's a personal journey on for me, because there were I would say both of my parents. One, in terms of, it was diagnosed as schizophrenia. However, my personal take on it, just watching the progression, what was diagnosed as schizophrenia was actually early onset dementia. And that's on the maternal side. Paternal side, probably a chronic, if not severe, depression, and that had its own dynamic. But the maternal side was far more dominant.
Yeah.
If you ever saw the movie A Beautiful Mind, don't say no, because I knew you had to see that. You remember the car chase scene and all that. That is what was portrayed as reality to us growing up. So for me personally, understanding how important it is that people take care of those things through nutrition, through managing their environment and their stress, through maintaining positive connections with individuals, people that get them, and people that matter to them. And all those things are part of self-care and maintaining mental health. Okay, one crazy question. Ayahuasca, what do you think?
I don't know enough about it. I know people who swear by it, and they use it. I know a guy who's a shaman, and he uses plant medicine. Actually, I know a few people like this who use plant medicine to help them. And I know there's been, particularly with dealing with trauma, there's been a lot of work with people creating the safe space and having sort of guided journeys with ayahuasca and other psychedelics that help people relax enough to then deal with some things to heal some traumas that have sort of been stuck. You know what I mean?
Are they doing it outside now of the Amazon? Is it something really?
Yeah. The people I know, one's in New York, another one's in, I think Texas somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. So people are doing that. I know there's if you look up this dude, it's Dr. Gabor Mate, Mate. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
Yeah, Gabor, Gabor Mate. He's got a whole system that he's got a movie out there. There's a documentary on him dealing with trauma and stuff. But he uses, I don't know if it's ayahuasca, but he uses psychedelics. I believe it's ayahuasca. in his treatment. And he works out of, I don't even know where he works out of now. I know he was working out of Vancouver in Canada here, as well as other places in the States. So yeah, there are people who are using it, and fairly effectively, from what I understand too.
Okay.
So.
So let me just tell you a little bit. So the topic.
And sorry, I just got to let you know, I gotta drop off and
I'm getting ready to go right now. You think
Yeah.
the name of like I said, my show is Crush Your Mountain. At the end of each show, I ask my guests, what does it mean to crush your mountain? So give some thought to that. The other thing is, when you go to my channel to take a look, please subscribe, like and subscribe as always. But when you do, I think you'd be interested in two Canadians. One is Sandra Ewan McKay, and her story of dealing with schizophrenia from a child up is encouraging. And also Susie Kootley, the Susie Kootley story. If you remember, just a few months ago, there was a whole situation there in Kamloops, Canada, with the Indigenous people. That touches on her story. I think you'll get at least get an idea of what's happening there and enjoy that too. But please, I'm going to go ahead and get you scheduled in and send you something. I really look forward to talking with you. And hey man, just thank you for the time, and
you too.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again. Okay.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for having me on, and I'm going to have me on. So
all right, man.
Look forward to the fact we get to chat a little bit more. So it'll be good.
Take care now.
All right, take it easy. Have a good day.